This episode was made possible thanks to generous supporters on Patreon. Hello everyone, my name's Alexandra Zerner, and this is the 6th episode of my YouTube series Asking Alexandra, which is dedicated to your questions and my answers, which means that if you want your questions answered by me, write them down in the comments below. Now, let's start with the first question. Hi Alex, I hope you're feeling better. Since you're very well versed and sophisticated in music, I just wonder if you were born in a musical background. If not, what's the motivation behind to make you enter the music route? Many thanks in advance for answering the question. Thank you for your interesting question. The truth is that I'm not coming from a musical background at all, and the only professional musician in my entire family history is my great-great-grandfather, who was a bandmaster, and he was dealing with brass orchestras and things like that, but that's like more than 100 years ago, so it doesn't really count. As a matter of fact, one of my grandfathers was like sort of hobby musician, and he played some simple stuff on mandolin, accordion, and a little bit violin and harmonica, and basically this is everything in terms of my music background. I think he has affected me to a certain degree, because generally I was a very musical child, and I was very interested in listening to a lot of music and playing air instruments, and especially, I remember when I was, probably 5, 6 or something like that, that I was playing Brian May's solos on tennis racket. And this is how it all started. And, essentially, when I was a child, I had 3 concepts of what I should become when I grow up. One of them was to be a scientist, the other one was to be a pilot, and the third one was, not in this particular order, the third one was to become a musician, and at least one of them became true. So I hope this answers the question. I'd be curious to learn more about your lap steel guitar playing, how and when you got started, who your influences were, etc. Thank you for your interesting question. Yes, I play lap steel guitar, which happens a little bit behind the scenes. So yeah, it will be a great opportunity to talk a little bit more about this instrument. So that's the lap steel that I've got. It's something that belonged to the studio that I was working at many moons ago, and basically there were a lot of interesting instruments there, and I just decided to give it a try, and essentially I was inspired by David Gilmour, and I really wanted to play some of his stuff, and this is how I started. And later, actually last year, I decided to buy this instrument from the studio because I really wanted to have it and to include it in my stuff, because it's just another voice of mine that I use in my compositions. So essentially this is the background story of this guitar. It's Gretsch, and it's quite heavy. Yeah, I will play a little bit later in this video. In some recent videos you showed some of your equipment, 2 new ones and a very old one. However, we can see several more behind you in the videos. Would you mind introducing all of your musical instruments in one video, telling the story behind them, how often do you play them and for what occasions, and also playing a little bit on each of them? Well, that's quite an interesting question and requires a lot of things to be done. So yes, I've got a bunch of instruments starting from here and here and here all the way to the wall, which is not far. And most of them are relatively new. I got them in the last year or two. So essentially I've got a very colorful arsenal right now. So I will start from here and basically I will go in this direction. So the first instrument is the mandolin, which is another instrument that I got from the studio that I was working in, and I bought it from there. The idea of playing the mandolin was again because of the aforementioned grandfather, who was a hobby musician, and he was playing a little bit of mandolin, and I thought it's a very interesting instrument, and I particularly like the sound of it. And later, when I saw the music video of Losing My Religion, and I was like, okay, I just need a mandolin, and this is super awesome instrument. And yeah, this is the background story. This one is from Fender, and it has a pickup that I actually never used because I prefer the pure acoustic sound. And in terms of playing, the next instrument from this corner is my flute, which usually is right there behind the mandolin, but right now it's here because I had to assemble it first. You know, the flute consists of 3 parts, so you need to assemble it. The truth is that I play from relatively soon on the flute. It's just a couple of years. And actually I wanted to play flute for a very long time, and I love this instrument very much. And I like how versatile it is and how well it integrates into progressive rock. You know, bands like Jethro Tull inspired me a lot, Peter Gabriel, and many, many more. And I was always afraid that I won't be able to manage it. And actually I was nicely surprised when I started playing that it felt like my instrument as well. Well, my skills are not very good yet, and this particularly because I don't practice, you know, because I can't really find enough time. But yeah, this one is a flute by Thomann, so it's a budget flute, and it has open holes, which essentially makes the playing a little bit harder, but you can do some interesting stuff like bending notes and things like that, which is, you know, essential thing when you play stuff like Jethro Tull and other similar things. And yeah, I can play something for you.
The BBC would like to announce that the next scene is not considered suitable for family viewing. It contains scenes of poorly recorded playing on various music instruments.
Yeah, sort of. So now we're moving to the guitars, which start from here. So that's my white Ibanez GIO, which is something that I won from Newly Bros contests 2016, I believe. I'll put links in the description. And it's a very special guitar because it's signed by Newly herself, also Greg Howe, Marcus Foley, and also Jason Becker. Actually, 2 times, because one of them got a little bit smudged. So Neely was very thoughtful to make this twice. So yeah, this guitar has a very special meaning. You know, Jason Becker is one of my favorite guitar players, and yeah, I actually use this guitar a lot, and there is even something from my last album that I actually composed on this guitar. So, the next instrument, that's another 6-string Ibanez, which is here from relatively soon. It's actually a surprise gift to me, and it's a very beautiful guitar. It's Japanese and very, very comfortable, like Ibanez in general. And this one I keep half step down because I just want to have a guitar half step down because I never had guitar in this tuning, and it's a nice thing to have, especially when you decide to learn something that's in this tuning. And a very good example of that is Yngwie Malmsteen. So that's the story about this guitar. The next one, that's my custom 8-string. It's made by Bulgarian luthier back in 2016, and it's by my design, my specs, and so forth. I've got a review of this guitar. You can watch it on the link in the description. And this is the guitar that I recorded Opus 1880 with. So So, the next instrument is my 8-string Ibanez, and this is the Silhouette guitar, because I recorded the entire album with this guitar, and this is something that I got last year. There is also a review of this guitar with all the customizations that happened. I will put links in the description. And yeah. The next instrument That's my fretless guitar, and it's my Jackson that probably you have seen in some of the videos. It was red, and I recorded the entire aspects with it. Also, two songs from my first album, Nine Stories. These are Memoirs of a Geisha and Leon. And since I've got a couple of other 8-string guitars, I decided to make this one fretless because I really wanted to have a fretless guitar. And there is also a review of this guitar. I will put a link in the description. And yeah. The next instrument is this electric sitar, which is something very nice, very exotic. I like it a lot, and I got it this year, and I used it for Silhouette, of course, my last album. And I was dreaming of this instrument for many years, and again, there is a review of it. I will put a link in the description. And the next thing in my arsenal is my 5-string status or status. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Bass. It's English make very comfortable bass. It's like a shred bass. It's very easy to play. I bought this many years ago. I don't really remember when, and I decided to buy it the moment when I saw it and when I heard how it sounds purely acoustically. And for me, this is very important because if it sounds well unplugged, most of the time with nice pickups, it will sound well in general. So this is the instrument that I used for all of my albums. I changed the tuning several times because my first album, Nine Stories, it's recorded with 7-string Ibanez that I no longer have. It was tuned a whole step down, and back then this bass was also tuned a whole step down. But later, when I started recording aspects and so forth, I tuned it down so it matches the lowest string on the guitar. So this one is actually low F sharp. And here's something. And the next instrument is my lap steel that I already showed, and I told you that I will play a little bit on it. In case you don't know, it's played with a very specific slide. It looks like that. So it's not the regular bottleneck that you use on a conventional guitar, and this one is held like that. And I recorded some parts for Opus 1818 with this guitar. I also used it quite a lot in my last album, Silhouette. And here's something.
The BBC would also like to apologize for the poorly framed image due to bad filming planning, which results in the inability to observe the instrument that's being played.
The next instrument that I've got is already, we're starting the acoustic section. This one is octave mandolin. And this is another thing that I wanted to have for some time because I find the Western European folklore very interesting, and also, Led Zeppelin stuff. John Paul Jones, once you watch him play such instruments and you're a fan of this music, it's a must. And this is something that I got also this year. And the interesting story is that one of my students had almost the same instrument. He actually had Irish bouzouki, which is almost the same. This one is just a tiny bit shorter scale, and the strings are slightly different. And he gave me this instrument for a couple of weeks, and I tried some of the compositions for the new album on this, and I fell in love with the sound, and I decided to get this instrument. But I put strings from Greek bouzouki because in such set the lowest two strings are on octaves. The regular octave mandolin string sets are all of the courses are unison, and I really like the idea of having octave strings because they create a very interesting sound. So this is one of the things that I recorded in Silhouette. The next thing is this 7-string acoustic Ibanez, which was actually 12-string. I'm sorry, it was 12-string, and I really wanted to have a 7-string acoustic or an 8-string, but Ibanez discontinued their 7-string models, so I needed to get creative. So I decided to get 12-string and just to customize it a bit, and I did this myself, and I made a new nut. It's a bone nut, and also a new saddle, and yeah, I wanted to have such a guitar when I was recording Opus 1818, because this track, the saturation point, it needed to have a low B string, and I actually tuned the guitar that I had especially for this section, and I played some parts with normal tuning, then I dropped the entire guitar down. I used the low parts, and then it was a very complicated job, but yeah, this is what you need to do when you're limited. So yeah, this one is this is my actual 12-string guitar, and I have it for ages. I bought it 2006, I believe, when I was living in Prague, and I recorded a lot of things with it. It was tuned a whole step down, and I used it for Opus 1880, and also I used it now on Silhouette. And here's something for you. The last instrument is my 8-string nylon string Ortega, which is something that I have from since very recently. And the moment I saw that there is such a guitar, I really wanted to have it because, generally I play 8-string guitars and I just like to have this range. And voila. So essentially these are all of my instruments. Of course, here I've got the MIDI keyboard, which I use to play all the synth parts and so forth. Yep. I'm interested in the world of guest musicians and collaborations with other artists. You have had guests and have been a guest. I know you have written with Sevi. Love the art of war. So, do you call someone and say, will you play on my album? Any thoughts you want to add? Just curious on how it all comes about. Thank you for another interesting question. I personally approached many people so far, and usually there are people that I already have some communication, so it's not something from scratch. And at certain point when I want to have particular musician on my album, usually it's something that I find very suitable for their particular style and manner of playing or singing. So I like to invite people that will match very well the type of music that I'm doing, and they will feel comfortable with this composition. And usually I just ask them if they're okay to do guest appearance in my album and what are their conditions. So essentially this is how it goes. And when I've been asked to collaborate, people approach me the same way. So I believe this is like the normal way of doing this type of stuff. What is your number one instrument and why? You play so many different ones. Was it something that developed automatically because you needed certain sounds, or did you always have the goal to play as many instruments as possible? Sorry, more than one question. So I'm basically a guitar player, so this is my main instrument. This is the first instrument that I started playing, and it's still my biggest love. Of course, I really wanted to explore music in general in all kinds of colors and to use different musical tools, and this is why I started getting interested in many different instruments. And it's not really a goal to play as many instruments as possible, but I need different type of sounds in my music, and if I'm able to play them on my own, I will be happier. And this is why I started playing the piano, I started playing bass, and later I started playing lap steel, mandolin, and later the flute and so forth. And I have even more plans for other instruments in the future, but it will be very difficult because even now I am overwhelmed and I can't really find enough time to practice all of these instruments. So I mostly focus on guitar and piano, and everything else is like gravitating around. Since it's a subject which I haven't heard you speak about, Would you please allow me to see and hear more about your bass playing abilities? Also, what techniques do you have at your disposal when adding bass parts to your music? Thank you. Well, my bass playing is not something really impressive. It's rather something that it's as good as to suit my music. But of course, I will play something for you, and of course, I will try to show off. So I hope this is something that is not disappointing you too much. But yeah, I'm not really much of a bass player, and yeah, this is what you can expect from my playing. And regarding the gear, I've got the bass. It goes directly into the sound device, and I use a plugin for the sound, and this is what I use right now. It's called Studio Devil, and I use it for many moons, and this is the same gear that I used to record bass in all of my albums. What's the difficulties you faced during the pandemics as a musician? I know you are mostly working on your composition and albums at home and not actively doing touring. Also, the other question is, would you make any more tutorial videos that the most guitar playing mistakes that the beginners make? Many thanks. The pandemics didn't really affect me much because I work mostly alone. I teach online and I do session work also in my home studio, and from this perspective I'm not really affected. That's true that I'm not touring, and that's because currently I don't have a band, and yeah, touring alone is not really entertaining. Regarding your other questions, yes, I will do all kinds of tutorials. I've got a huge list of topics for Dr. Zerner's Guitar Lab, so stay tuned. Where is the limit of having an instrument that prevents you of getting better? I know you recorded your albums on some pretty affordable Ibanez, and there are some of my favorite tones for electrical guitar pieces. Leon, Memoirs of a Geisha, Semisextilis. For me, my updated Red Special would serve me for life. Why people chase gear and not the ability to become better songwriters and players? That's a very good question. I really think that quite often the very pricey gear is actually overrated, and I mean, from certain point on, you might get some small improvement when you go higher and higher in the price range, but I don't think that this improvement is justified in terms of price. And I come from such a background that I've never had a lot of money, and I needed to find creative solutions and basically work with what I have. And I think that nowadays many people get spoiled because there is access to all kinds of gear, and it's very easy to obtain certain things, and people are looking for shortcuts and easy solutions, and they think that buying new and more expensive and high quality gear will make them better musicians, but this is not how it works. Of course, a good instrument is a must, because at a certain point, if you use something that's very low quality, it becomes abstraction, and the moment you're no longer able to express your musicality through a certain instrument because of the quality, this is the time when you need to jump to the next level. But self-indulging with all kinds of high quality gear, it's not something that will serve you well, I think. And yeah, that's true that my first album is recorded with stock 7-string Ibanez GIO, I believe. It was Japanese make, but it was something really affordable. I bought it for €300, and there was not any upgrades made to this guitar. It was just as it is. And I think it was a beautiful instrument, and I really don't think that one really needs something really spectacular to be a good musician. Hello Alexandra, what about the white GIO? What did you do to it? Love your playing. Thank you very much. The white GIO that I actually showed earlier, the only thing that I did to it is to change the pickups, and I did it because Neely Brosh used the same type of pickups, and I decided to give it a try. These are EMG 5766 sets, and I decided to give it a try. And I also thought that it's a good symbolic meaning to put the sets that she plays with on this guitar, because yeah, I won it from her contest. So yeah, this is the reason why I put this there, and the rest is just some fixation on top of the signature, so I can make sure that they won't get damaged. So yeah, that's everything that I did to the guitar, and I still use it. So that's everything for this episode. Just to remind you, if you want to have your questions answered by me, write them down in the comments below. And if you like what I do, consider supporting me on Patreon, also on the link down in the description, where you can get access to all kinds of interesting things like tabs, downloads, exclusive materials, and other interesting things. And the membership starts as low as $3 per month. Also, if you are a first-time viewer, subscribe to my channel and click that bell notification button to get informed when I upload new video. See you next time, and prog on!